Good afternoon, everyone. We were going to begin here in just a few minutes. We will begin in about 2 minutes. Okay, let's begin. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. Today, we're going to talk about state registrations and licensing, mainly for profit organizations, but specifically why it is an important topic for any organization in any industry that does business in the United States. This is a monthly webinar that we are always thrilled to bring to you because it's such a dynamic landscape and so many clients and organizations across the country have questions, including many of you today. Before we get started, there are just a few housekeeping items. Because of the size of the call, the audience will be on mute. If you have audio or connection issues at any time, please try leaving the presentation and rejoining using the link that you clicked originally. We will be recording today's presentation, and you will receive a copy via the email you used to register within 24 hours of the conclusion of today's webinar. Let's dive in. My name is Jared Morgan. I am an account executive here at Harbor Compliance. Harbor Compliance is a nationwide provider of registered agent, business registration, licensing services, and software. We also provide extensive nonprofit formation and fundraising compliance solutions to nonprofit organizations through Labyrinth, our nonprofit brand. Let's jump into today's agenda. We will cover an overview of the regulatory landscape and updates for 2024, what's successful out-of-state registration looks like, the importance of maintaining multi-state compliance, and then we will cover the best practices both in terms of people and process and technology and data. We'll then provide an overview of what Harbor Compliance can do for you and your organization. Let's begin with the regulatory landscape updates for this year, 2024. Each state has independent rules governing businesses and nonprofits operating within their borders. Business entities are formed and maintained at the state level. While the IRS regulates how the entity is taxed at the federal level, states and local jurisdictions have additional tax and licensing requirements. Each jurisdiction has different requirements for registration and ongoing compliance. The requirements are interconnected. For example, when a business registers with the Secretary of State, doing so may trigger the need for tax registration and vice versa. Likewise, the businesses applying for licenses may also need Secretary of State or tax registrations in the first place. As we'll discuss later, organizations need a solution to address all of these requirements, which is exactly what Harbor Compliance has to offer. Let's start with the major trends we continue to see. These macroeconomic factors drive companies and even nonprofits across state lines faster. Why? It is now easier and normal to do business across state lines. Remote employment triggers new tax, Secretary of State, licensing, and other specific state requirements. Sales and use tax obligations apply to economic and online activity, not just physical brick and mortar sales. Consolidation resulting from mergers and acquisitions in key verticals increases the volume of transactional filings and the importance of compliance management. While there are distinct business benefits, the trends expose the organizations to increased complexity and also risk. These requirements and registrations can be complex, and you as a business owner or manager may not have the time to monitor these things the way they should be. Government agencies are increasingly embracing technology via online filings, enhancing their enforcement abilities as well. Noncompliance can lead to substantial penalties. Businesses that do not follow um, these requirements can lose access to state functions such as the court systems for enforcing their contacts. And of course, there are reputational risks also to consider. Perhaps one of the biggest changes for 2024 is this new beneficial ownership information reporting requirement that went into effect following the passage of Corporate Transparency Act, or as we call it, CTA. We're going to take a few minutes to dive into this topic in a bit more detail than our typical survey of requirements changes, so please bear with us. This requirement is one of the biggest regulatory updates impacting small businesses in recent history, so it deserves the extra attention. So before we jump into that, I do have a brief poll question that's going to gauge how familiar you are with this new requirement. Give me a second here. I am launching the poll now. How familiar are you with the BOI reporting requirements? Are you completely familiar with it? Are you completely unfamiliar with it? I know this is a new requirement for 2024. I see a lot of answers coming in that we are unfamiliar with it, which is great. That's what we're here to cover. Give another 20 seconds. Seeing a lot of great answers coming in. A lot of us are unfamiliar with it. One more second. Perfect. So I am very excited that most of us are unfamiliar with this new CTA act that is an anti-financial crimes law that recently went into place. Um, His primary objective is to prevent money laundering, terrorism financing, and other illicit financial activities by promoting transparency within corporate structures. Reporting beneficial ownership information, or BOI, supports the CTA's objective by requiring most organizations to report information about the individuals who control their operations to the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, or as we call it, FinCEN, an agency of the U.S. Treasury Department. These individuals are known as beneficial owners, hence the term beneficial ownership information reporting. By revealing the individuals who benefit from a business, it becomes more challenging for criminals to operate that business anonymously. You're familiar with the saying, follow the money. BOI reporting allows the federal government to more easily follow the money and identify bad actors behind a complex corporate structures. So FinCEN's collecting information about companies and the individuals that own and control them to protect the rest of us from financial crimes. But what businesses have to provide that information? Does the average business owner even need to worry about this? Before the filing window opening on January 1st of this year, after setting aside exceptions for sole proprietorships, estate plan trusts, and general partnerships, FinCEN estimated around 32 million reporting companies existed as of the first of this year, and that another 5 million new reporting companies would be registered this year and each year after that. That's roughly 97% of all organizations registered in the United States. These numbers are really overwhelming. And put simply, the vast majority of businesses must report BOI. Granted, there are going to be some organizations that are exempt. In fact, there are 23 different exemption categories. However, most are narrow and only apply to regulated organizations like banks, insurance providers, utilities, or nonprofits with federal 501c or 527 tax exemptions. Please note that nonprofits that aren't federally tax exempt generally must report. The thought process behind this is that these organizations are already disclosing a lot of information to the government about their activities through license filings and other reports. So reporting BOI wouldn't reveal anything new the government did not already know. While there are exemptions that apply to highly specific entities, there is one broad exception to be aware of. This is the large operating company exemption. The large operating company exemption excludes entities with at least 20 full-time employees, a U.S. operating presence, and a tax return reporting over $5 million in gross receipts from reporting BOI. This exemption also applies to subsidiaries of such entities. So now I'm going to put another poll up here for you, and we're going to find out how many of your organizations may fall into this category of the large operating companies. Drop the poll here. So is your organization a large operating company? So does your organization have 20 or fewer full-time employees? Did your organization report gross receipts of sales of $5 million or less in the federal tax return of last year? A lot of answers coming in here. It seems like most of us will need to file the BOI reporting for this year. Perfect. For the majority of us, most of us will not fall in that large operating company exemption list. Going back where it's 97% of all U.S. companies will have to report. Let me go jump back here. If you're wondering if your organization is exempt, the easiest way is to answer the questions by taking this free exemption quiz. You can scan the QR code on the screen to take the quiz right now. You can scan it, fill it out later. It is quick to complete, and the results will be sent to your inbox within minutes. I do want to be clear with the quiz that it offers only general guidance and isn't meant to replace legal advice from an attorney. So if you'd like to scan the QR code and take that exemption quiz, results will populate within minutes. You can do it now or later. And once again, this will be recorded. So if you did want to complete this later, we will send you the recording with this QR code. Once you have confirmed that your organization will need to report, every BOI filing will include two types of information, company and individual. Required company information is pretty basic and includes things like company name, address, and formation jurisdiction. The information required of individuals is also fairly straightforward. It's going to be the name, date of birth, your residential address, etc. Note that there are two different categories of individuals that can be listed on a BOI report. That is going to be beneficial owners and company applicants. Beneficial owners are individuals with ownership or substantial control over the entity. Every report must include at least one, but there can be many. In fact, there's technically no limit to how many beneficial owners and single reporting companies a company can have. On the other hand, company applicants are individuals who either create or cause the reporting company to be created. It's generally the person who files the formation paperwork with the Secretary of State and the person who directed them to do that. Company applicants must only be listed on reports filed by reporting companies that were formed in 2024 or later. Each report can include up to 2 company applicants, but at least one is going to be required. That all might seem straightforward, but there's more to it that meets the eye. Before you reach out and start collecting information from all of your beneficial owners and company applicants, you'll need to consider 2 different things. First one's going to be the security of the data you are collecting. The second one is going to be the time you will need to invest to collect it. The residential addresses, images of government IDs, and other personal details required in a BOI report constitute personally identifiable information, or PII. You'll need to have certain security protocols in place when transferring and storing PII to prevent this sensitive information from falling into the wrong hands. Simply emailing or texting PII back and forth or storing it in shared documents is not secure. This is a real risk to your business. Believe me, you do not want to invest in creating a secure private environment to collect and store this information on your own when you can save yourself a ton of time, effort, and money by working with Harbor Compliance. Our information collection process includes all of the necessary protections to allow you to confidently request, store, and maintain that sensitive PII information. Now let's consider how much time you'll invest in collecting BOI. FinCEN estimates completing a single BOI report will take about 3 hours. Reporting is much more time consuming for organizations with multiple legal entities and or individuals. That's because they'll have so much more data to gather, and the type into FinCEN filing, the filing portal known as the BOI Secure System, or BOSS. Having to enter the same information over and over and over again across these entities is very tedious and error prone, especially if you delegate the task to a single person. Imagine being the admin at a multi-entity organization who's reporting BOI. The CEO then tells you to gather that information required to report BOI to several entities under the parent company umbrella. You'll need to navigate the ownership and management structure of each entity to find the right individuals. You're going to then need to locate their contact information, contact all of them by phone, not email, to protect the PII. You'll need to collect and all the fields that are going to follow up questions about why it is necessary and what information is being used for. And that's all before you have even filed anything. Next, you'll need to navigate to the BOSS portal and manually type the company details for the first reporting company. You'll also add beneficial owners, and if it was formed in 2024, its company applicants. Then you'll type the personal information of each and every single individual that needs to be disclosed for the reporting company. You'll hit submit, and hey, congratulations, you just completed the filing for just one of those entities. Now you're going to need to repeat the process over and over again for each reporting company in your organization. Of course, it won't stop there because you'll have to monitor the data as it changes, but I'm getting way ahead of myself here. The point is that Harbor Compliance system is going to save you a ton of time by allowing you and your admin to send dedicated information collection forms to each of your individuals. This approach keeps your data safe and avoids sharing PII via email where it could be intercepted by bad actors. You simply enter the person's email address and our system goes to work collecting the required data. And since our system is collecting that data, you don't have to worry about contacting anyone to explain what BOI reporting is or why the requested data is needed. The system's interface and notifications handle everything for you. Not to mention, our information form is just easy. It provides a more user-friendly experience than the BOSS portal, more helpful explanations, and intuitive design. When you are working with Harbor Compliance, you can rest assured you're working with the most advanced approaches to information collection and transmission out there. And while we're completing the reports on your behalf, You'll maintain complete visibility into our progress via the easy use project status screen, which allows you to communicate with our team of experts responsible for submitting your filings. But the most important benefit is how your data is organized. We'll centrally store everything you share with us so it can be readily accessed across multiple reports, regardless of how many BOI reports your organization needs to submit. Each data point is requested only once. If you're a direct client, you provide these details for each of your reporting companies one time via our secure web-based information form. Each of your beneficial owners and company applicants receive their own customized form in their email inboxes, which they are also to fill out just one time. For partners, it's even easier. You securely send us a bulk file of your client entities and their beneficial owners and company applicants. We import the reporting companies into our system and send the individuals their own information collection forms. Your reports are then prepared on your behalf, eliminating the need for you or your clients to key in the details for multiple times for multiple entities. Data storage and processing is vital because updated reports need to be submitted anytime information about your company or individuals change. And corrected reports need to be submitted if any incorrect information is mistakenly reported. In both cases, the reports need to be filed within 30 days of underlying change event. Failure to do so risks all the same penalties as not submitting the initial report on time. This is where Harbor Compliance really shines. Not only does our BOI reporting service include support for up to 4 initial, updated, and corrected reports per year, but the data we store for your reports is processed by a compliance core algorithm. The result is actionable insight into what you need to maintain not only your BOI reporting obligations, but the good standing of your legal entities, business licenses, and tax registrations. With the power of Compliance Core, we are right there to help you navigate over 22,000 filing requirements nationwide. One last note on the BOI reporting requirement. We've spoken with many business owners about BOI reporting and the CTA in general. And 2 things really stand out in those responses. The first is that how little awareness there is around this topic. Despite the fact that the reporting window has been open since January 1st of this year, most business owners have not been keeping up with the requirements. In fact, as of mid-May, only about 1.8 million BOI reports have been filed. The second thing we frequently hear may help explain that first one. It's that business owners are expecting their accountants or attorneys to at least notify them of it and potentially handle it for them. And this is where business owners should sit up and listen. In general, most attorneys and accountants do not plan to offer BOI reporting services for one of a few reasons. First, completing BOI reports involves the collection and storage of that sensitive, personal, identifiable information. Second, the ongoing need to update FinCEN with any business changes presents a lot of complexity. Put together, these present and technology challenges and data security risk that most firms do not want to deal with. And it's not always just a matter of a preference for these law and accounting firms. Many of them have internal compliance protocols that do limit their ability to provide this service directly to their clients. Of course, many accountants and attorneys want to meet this need for their clients, so many are exploring partnering with a third-party provider like Harbor Compliance to handle the filings for their clients. Doing so allows them to educate their clients the way their clients expect them to, and to offer a solution that meets their needs without having to build the technology or touch the PII that would put their firms at risk. Accountants and attorneys will definitely play a role in helping their clients meet BOI requirements, but for the most part, it probably won't involve submitting the reports for their clients. Rather, they will be referring their clients to partners to manage the filing requirements, or in many cases, working with those partners embedded reporting technology into the back processes, providing a seamless All right, let's get back into the track with the multi-state requirements. First up, it's successful out-of-state registration. But before we get into that, I'm going to put up another poll question about how many of you have direct experience with this. Let me drop that poll here. So how many of you have experience with that out-of-state registration? Poll is now up. How are you managing your registrations and licenses across multiple states? Right away, I'm seeing a lot of us are managing them themselves. Employee or teammate is managing them using spreadsheets. We see a lot of these requirements. Awesome. I'm seeing a lot of mixed answers here, which I love to see. But most of us are managing them ourselves, or a team at our company is managing them for us, or using spreadsheets. 20 seconds. The first step to doing business in a new state is understanding the organization's activities in each jurisdiction and researching the relevant requirements, ideally before those activities even begin. This is where the organization's legal and tax advisors play a valuable role. Once you have an understanding of where registration is required, it's time to do so. Each state has a set of responsibilities for out-of-state organizations. While the high-level process is similar across states, applications, fees, processing times, information requirements, and terminology are state-specific. Here is a few examples. Business registration, usually foreign, qualify, but could be new entity formation depending on the type of organization and situation. This is usually the first step in any state. Business registration occurs with the Secretary of State's office and permits the entity to now do business in that jurisdiction. It generally also reserves the business's name in the state and grants access to the court system to bring and defend suit through state-specific requirements, and they do vary. During business registration, the entity designates a registered agent to receive notice of any lawsuit. The appointment occurs when the entity forms, expands, or makes a change to the existing public record. For as long as the registered agent is listed in the state record, it is responsible for receiving time-sensitive legal and government documents at its physical address and then forwarding them to the business it represents. Registered agents are often appointed on an as-needed basis rather than strategically. Many organizations inadvertently appoint a variety of individuals, companies, and law firms as the registered agent in multiple different states. This leads to increased administration of managing different agents, potentially increase the cost, the same representation, and higher risk of missing a crucial document delivery. Organizations should ensure they use one registered agent that meets the requirements of all states where they do business. Most agents, like Harbor Compliance, are happy to help consolidate your registered agent representation with one vendor, one invoice, and one process. Tax registration is the process of opening the tax accounts needed to file returns and pay taxes. Most common examples are withholding and unemployment accounts for employers and sales tax accounts for sellers and resellers. But there are plenty of other types. Tax registration becomes necessary when the business has nexus or enough of a connection or physical connection in a state. It's important to know that registration with departments of revenue and labor does not happen automatically. Some action is needed by the organization. And given the complexity of tax registration forms, it's best to take a proactive approach and file registration applications before sales, employment, or other taxable activity takes place. Obtaining a business license allows the organization to legally operate either in a certain jurisdiction or regulated industry. This may be at the state or the local level, and licenses may be required for the company and individual employees. With over 150,000 licensing agencies in the US, there's no one size fits all approach to obtaining licenses. But organizations should work proactively to identify and apply for the licenses if it for it for its needs, working with its legal advisors and any service providers as necessary. Many organizations prioritize finding a solution for the problem at hand. Like an iceberg, there is more beneath the surface. For example, hiring an employee requires a state payroll tax ID. However, in many states, obtaining a tax ID requires Secretary of State registration. Another is that businesses that apply for a license often find Secretary of State registration, tax registration, and other requirements must be met. This may be due to the entity's name, ownership structure, industry, or some other agency criteria. On an ongoing basis, the organization must maintain all of these various Secretary of State tax and licensing obligations. Organizations must be prepared to develop or find a solution that can help with all of these interconnected requirements. Now that your organization is registered in multiple states, let's talk about maintaining the multi-state compliance. Before we jump into that, I have one last poll question about how you are going to be managing this multi-state compliance. So what's your status with relation to registering out of state? Have you ever registered out of state and don't plan to? We've registered out of state in the past, or will likely need to register in state in the next 6 months. I'm seeing a lot of participants need to register with new states in the next 6 months. Harbor compliance can always help you foreign qualify your business at any time. So please reach out to us if you do need help registering in a new state. 20 more seconds. Like in your home state, your business will now have ongoing obligations to maintain good standing or the right to keep doing business in all of these new foreign jurisdictions. You may be familiar with them already from managing entities in your home state. For as long as the entity does business and registers in a state, it must keep a current registered agent, on state record to receive service of process, lawsuits, and other government notices. That means filing a change every time an agent's information is no longer current, or much more preferable, simply paying a single service company's invoice every year for their ongoing representation. Nearly every state requires business entities to file an annual report to ensure it keeps current information on record. Because each state has a unique deadline, a multi state business faces deadlines throughout the entire year. Reports are also due on a yearly or biannual basis. Many states additionally require the business to file and pay franchise taxes to maintain corporate good standing, such as California, New York, and Texas. Some franchise taxes are remitted at the same time as the annual reports. Examples for that include Delaware and Texas. And then two agencies means franchise tax reinstatement is often more expensive and time consuming than Secretary of State reinstatement. Most business licenses require to operate in a location or certain industry must be renewed for that activity to continue. This varies greatly and may be annual, biannual, or something else. Regardless of where and when your organization requires licensure, it needs a way to track deadlines and file updates and those renewals on time. Multi-state compliance is dynamic both with changes to the requirements themselves and to the organization's strategy and operations. Statutes, administrative policies, forms, and websites, and even government agencies responsible for registration all change regularly. A multi-state organization that handles state registrations on its own will inevitably encounter one of these changes along the way. The result, especially when it comes to registration, is often a rejected filing, adding more time spent on the phone or doing online research, or increased administrative and legal time. Organizations in multiple states should strongly consider outsourcing their registration to a provider whose function is to keep track of regulatory changes and ensure registrations are completed efficiently. Organizations are dynamic themselves. They are moving and growing fast, and these evolutions often trigger registration or updates to the state records. These might include creating a new entity and subsidiary, a holding company, operating entity, or to meet professional licensing requirements. M&A, which results in the certain creation and subsequent merging out in a new entity, or at minimum updates to names, addresses, and management in public records. Name changes prompted by rebranding. Changes or departure of key professionals or leadership resulting in updates to the Secretary of State, tax and licensing authorities, and of course, growth into new states, meaning that the organization goes through the setup and ongoing compliance processes we described. I'll add that in the light of this new FinCEN reporting requirement, timely reporting of changes to your business becomes even more important to avoid significant penalties and fines. All the more reason to invest in a robust compliance program supported by technology and a trusted provider. Up to this point, we have shared a lot of concepts and theory. You may be asking, why is this important? What are the issues that could arise by not properly following registration requirements? Certainly, agencies have the ability to enforce penalties for noncompliance, but bigger picture, there are real-life challenges that can arise. We've worked with thousands of organizations across the country, and I'm going to share a few scenarios based on the real client challenges that we have seen here at Harvard Compliance. First one is that hiring a rockstar employee, but no payroll account. Your company hired a rockstar executive working remotely in a neighboring state. After some prolonged negotiations, they're ready to start immediately, and you know they're going to do an amazing job. Then your payroll tax company asks for your tax ID numbers in order to add the employee to your payroll and start paying them. But you've then realized you have not even applied for those payroll tax accounts yet. Second is bidding on project in a new state and need registration, licenses to complete and win. Imagine another scenario. Your top customer reaches out with a massive project opportunity in a new state. They love the work your company does, and if you can submit a bid in 14 days, there's a good chance the company is yours. As part of the bid, you need to submit proof of the licensure for your company, and one of the principals has to take an exam. The problem is that your company isn't licensed and you aren't sure how to get it all done in time. Last one here is an M&A. Imagine being the seller side and the buyer discovers that the entity is not in good standing or even registered. This can be raising a few questions about the management, invite further scrutiny, and lower the sale price by thousands or millions of dollars. Even after the fact, may cause ongoing headaches for the buyer to clean these up. These can make or break moments for an organization. The question is really how ready your organization can be. And that involves an um, intentional, proactive approach to compliance and making an investment in the right people, vendors, and technologies to make it happen. With that in mind, let's get to some of the best practices around people and process. Every organization has different requirements and aptitude for doing state registration work itself, but every successful compliance program begins with people, training, and processes. So, however your organization manages its state registration work, you can make a compliance a priority. This starts at the top down commitment to meeting requirements wherever the organization operates. Second is to examine key roles. Who handles the internal communication of key deadlines, research and requirements, and getting registrations done? This may be the staff, external tax and legal professionals, and service companies. Next is dedicating people or vendors responsible for ensuring and executing on your registrations and ensure you're not missing or duplicating efforts. And then on an ongoing basis, provide training and resources and have a contingency plan for time off, busy seasons, and also turnover. No one wants an employee to go on vacation only to discover they were the only person responsible for renewing a license on time. We stated it previously, but be proactive. Plan to register in advance for key opportunities or strategic initiatives. Agencies are backed up, and you want to leave enough time to avoid penalty. This also reduces stress and helps ensure you meet those deadlines. Lastly, examine your compliance footprint program regularly. Your organization's situation, as well as state requirements, change frequently. As a result, your compliance program may need to evolve by enhancing processes, investing in new technology, and continuing to ensure all stakeholders are well informed. Now let's consider what you need to get the job done. As we mentioned, state requirements are all different and they routinely change. For example, in mid 2022, DC changed the agency responsible for business registration and licensing. And in 2024, PA is now introducing a new annual reporting requirement. Many stakeholders need to know where a business is registered and whether it is in good standing. The director of BD for submitting a bid, the VP HR for hiring, CPA for tax returns, and attorneys for general legal reasons, litigation, and M&A. The reality is trying to build a system to support your multi-state or multi-entity organization through homegrown solutions isn't just difficult, it's also really risky. Many organizations use a combination of file folders, spreadsheets, calendar reminders, or their CRM to manage those deadlines and registrations. And then this often results through no one's particular fault in human error, poor visibility across the organization, and critical gaps and lapses. Modern businesses need a solution that tracks regulatory updates, provides visibility to all stakeholders, simplifies deadline monitoring, and offloads filings and non-core administrative responsibilities. Harbor Compliance has built software that has all key compliance functions just in one place. Entity records, tax and licensing data, the ability to register and renew, receive registered agent deliveries, track projects, and much, much more. Our data and technology enables all key stakeholders to identify and mitigate risks, know where the organization is registered and can operate, and preserves continuity as your business evolves. We're also a nationwide registered agent provider and offer services to register and maintain good standing with the Secretary of State and licensing authorities. So to conclude, everything you've heard that was presented today, we do have a solution for here at Harbor Compliance. Our services are designed to centralize your compliance needs under one system and one provider. These include registered agent services, annual report management, business license management, and tax registrations. If you're from a business or a nonprofit, you can rely on one nationwide service to complete and maintain your registration, and our technology keeps all stakeholders informed. If you are part of an accounting or legal firm, you can partner with us. By doing so, you get software benefits, outsource state registration work, and create additional value for your clients and firm. If you'd like to learn more about how we can work together or support your organization, please get in touch. I do have our email in there, harborcompliance.com/contact. Please reach out to us with any questions you have. If you're interested in those registered agent services, annual report services, or our software, please reach out to us at any time. And that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.